So today I'm going to be presenting to you Physicality kink. So we're basically going to be going a whole load of ways how to bring your entire body into your play. That's going to be everything from how to do some nice physical, like sort of rituals and traditions with your partners, to really how to bring up your whole play by bringing your whole body between you and your partner, to just really intensify things, how to provide sort of a more complete aftercare, or just how to get both you and your partner just more involved in your kink through sort of your entire body. So I'm Mr. James London. I've been on the kink scene in London for over 6 years now. I've been a professional dancer for about 3 years. I have presented large workshops all across the UK now. Largest one being at the Village Festival, where we presented to over 400 people. Everything from beginner's introductions to BDSM to things like this, to sort of more extreme, how to do sort of quite extreme impact like whips and things like that, how to do some quite extreme play. I have done pretty much everything you could do in the kink scene. I love trying to experiment, really push myself to really get out there, to really learn if I can. Worked with some amazing people, some of those people in this room, to really sort of up my skills and up myself. And I've got a background in sports science. I was a weightlifter for a few years, and I was a powerlifter, learning about the body and sort of knowing about the body and sort of muscles and all sort of physicality you have within yourself is one of my passions, so being able to sort of share that with people is always like that.
And I'm Tess.
Yeah. And this is my partner Tess. She is an adult performer, has also been with me for over 6 years now. We've sort of really grown together in the scene. She is just as good when it comes to teaching people how to bring their body into play as I am. So she has an amazing bank of knowledge, especially from the more submissive side. So it can be very much 50-50. It's not just the knowledge given, it's also about the submissive receiving that sort of physicality and letting themselves open up to their whole body being part of the experience. As I said, it's really easy to just do things like straight impact, straight rope, just to do sort of the mechanics of those things. While they're really good, really important skills to learn, learning how to bring your body into it can just make those situations a lot more intimate, especially between you and sort of your consistent partners. If it's between me and, say, someone at a club where I've met this person before, it's just a bit of fun, or it's a bit of sort of paid pick-up play, just going through the motions of giving them that impact, giving them that rope that they want, that is perfectly fine. But when you're working with your partner or working with someone who can actually see a bit more, really bring yourself into it and sort of letting your entire body be part of the experience can just really help bring things to a whole new level, so you're connecting more and you're engaging with each other more. It can make sessions last longer, it can make them more intense, it can make you sort of bond more, it can really open you up to some new experiences. There's some really simple ways you can really start. So one of the things I love to do myself is just have very nice physical ways to establish scenes and to sort of begin play. Common way people do that is by putting on things like collars, and why it can be very simple and very easy to be like on the floor, put on your collar, let me do this. If the person you're playing with isn't yet in that sort of submissive mind space, if you're sort of just going straight into it, just going bam, let's go, you put the collar on. It can just lead people to not approach it the right way. It can be a bit too formatic, it can be a bit too rushed into those situations. And it can lead people to take a while to kind of lean into the play and to kind of realise what's going on. And it can lead to sort of what I call like a bit of a car crash, that you're sort of going 100 miles an hour instantly and bam, it's like a bit too intense, a bit too much. Obviously people will more than find use safe words whenever, but it can lead to things like safe wording, just sort of you're not prepared emotionally or physically for what's going on.
As I said as well, I feel like colouring or the beginning of your scene is always the place where you're going to want the most connection together as partners, and it's the best space to have that connection to set up the rest of your play.
So a nice physical way of how to sort of approach collaring would be a nice way. Just you can
Hello.
So, like I said, you're going to be using your whole body, and this is my personal ritual. You can use your own ways how to do it, but I'll say there's some people in this room who recognise, and have seen me do this many times, that I like bringing my entire body in, that basically bringing them into me, that we're now touching quite intensely, that it's not just, oh, here's your collar, and you just pull your hair back, put it on, okay. That we're making it a bit more of a thing, that we're connecting, feeling their body, coming in, applying some nice pressure, nice squeezes, you know, especially if you know they've got a place that can, I know, just feel quite nice, whether that's arms or wrists or chest. Especially, my personal love is to place hands just sort of across their chest and bring them back into you. My partner's chest, my chest is now going right into my partner's back. We're bonding quite heavily. This is a lot of body contact, especially their skin to skin contact, so it's really nice, really intense. And then we can bring it close in. That's it, bring it in. So now nice and close. Once again, you're sort of not done. Now come back in, you're maintaining that constant physicality, making sure you're just keeping a nice bond with each other. And just making sure you get lots of nice little touches, lots of nice things. So it's a nice simple way to begin a session. It's not super intense, it's not super like, oh, you're now a sub, you're now mine, we're going to now do filthy, horrible things to each other. It's a nice way to connect. You know, there's now an obvious power dynamic going. I am bearing over Tess, I am, you know, in control, I'm the one pulling her back. I am the one grabbing her, I am the one, you know, controlling her body. There's lots of things we can do from here, like, you know, go straight into wrestling jumping, bring it to the ground. But you can just, you know, I've now got a lot of control of her and sort of bringing my entire body into that, it establishes that control. It's not just me saying I've got that control, it's me sort of demonstrating that with my entire body. Then from that, like I said, sort of bringing that entire body in, that it wasn't just the chest, it was running myself down her arms, touching her body. And that's sort of when I like to come into the next bits, which is sometimes in the scene, but usually more mid-scene or potentially aftercare, is when you come to things like wrist touching or sort of heavy gripping of themselves. So once again, it's a very nice thing you can do. Like I say, typically the aftercare can be used at the start of the scene, but I like to use this as a bit of a calm down. At the end of the scene, we're just kind of trying to get on a more neutral level. I'm trying to let you enjoy that sort of nice afterglow, that subspace, but I'm not trying to keep you there or push you deeper. It can be a nice thing to just hold your partner's wrists, and especially on their sort of muscles and their veins on the inside, the nice pressure points. Just apply some nice pressure. Once again, pulling them in. Lots of body contact. Hooks. They can seem like if you're sort of more sort of a hard dom, you can do it rougher. It doesn't have to be very sensual, it doesn't have to be very soft. It can be more...
Yeah.
It can be more just with my thumbs, still quite hard. Just once again, I'm applying that pressure. It can still be a nice physical thing. It is still applying that same pressure points to her. I'm just a bit rougher. It doesn't have to be sensual. It can be me pulling back, just applying that pressure to the wrists.
And I think another way we were going to talk about was how to sort of start upping the intensity of your scenes next by using the physicality. So starting off with bringing ourselves together, using the physicality, I think is really important. Again, creating that sense of connection between you and your partner. But there's also a lot of ways that you can use your body and use your partner's body to intensify each other's scene during things like impact, during things like rope. Where sometimes we get so excited by our new fancy toys that that's all we want to use, and we forget that we have all these great tools on ourselves to use at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. As Jess said, just using your hands, your whole body, is just one of the best tools you can have. Like I said, I can use things like whips and joggers, sort of really intense stuff. Doesn't always have to obviously be that intense. But taking those breaks and taking that time to really sort of touch and feel and sort of learn your partner's body in between them, sort of the intense play in between the scenes. You can use it as just a sort of mid-scene cool down or just a touch point, just to physically touching. You don't even have to do a full check like, are you okay? You know, what's your number? Like 1 to 10? Are you at a green? That kind of thing. You can just physically tell, especially when you know your partner's body, and sort of the more you get physical with it, the more you touch, the more you know them, the more you're just going to be able to learn those kind of things that do they feel like they're in a good place? Are they enjoying this scene? Is their body reacting the way I kind of expect them to? So that could be, if you're doing things like impact, a nice easy way is just a cold hand press. So, so if you're doing heavy impact, a nice easy way to do it is sort of you're slaking away, you're going quite hard. You know, you can go quite physical, and then just for a second, you can just apply some pressure onto your back. Take a second, run a hand up and down. This is now getting a less intense sort of a rub down, especially if you sort of use your entire body. It can be quite nice and cool, because obviously her bum, if we're doing an impact session, is going to be quite warm. My hands are going to get quite warm. Bring in your arms, your entire body. Now you're just giving us both a break. You're just getting a nice cool down. Then also by applying just pressure to the body, I can feel, is she shaking? Is she sort of fully collapsed? Is she not really sentient? If you apply a lot of body pressure, I can just tell, like, she is there, she's conscious, she's part of the situation. And like I said, that I'm now also just giving her bum a break from an impact session, check in, you know, especially, are we doing something quite intensive, so a flog or a whipper involved? You know, she's going to need that cool break, so you're going hard, 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 hard. You're just going to wear out quicker. That you're just sort of rushing to the end and taking small physical breaks to just split up your play, to just give them that sense of break, but also it's not a stop in play, it's just a nice sort of cool down. It's going from like a 9 to a 3, but you're not plummeting, taking a nice slow ramp down, feeling their body, sort of getting that more central play.
And on that, as a submissive, just getting that skin in between, especially if you're going for something quite hard, it can be a really nice way just to feel that break and feel that connection with your partner, especially sometimes when you're on the end of an implement. You can, you know, sort of get caught up in how intense the feeling is. And, you know, as a sub coming from that side, just having that little bit, especially after a particularly hard strike or something where your dom comes in and is just then really soft to you, makes you feel that connection back to your partner, remember why you're sort of in the scene, what you're looking for to do together.
Yeah, exactly, and it doesn't always have to be impact there. It can be things like rope, it can be things like wax play, it can be any kind of play, even if it's just pure role play. If you're doing, say, a pet scene or DDLG, taking that second to really apply some physical pressure, it can just really help you understand without having to sort of break scene and sort of do a full check-in. You know, how is their body reacting? Are they maybe trembling? Are they just not as in the moment as you think they should be? You know, maybe they've dropped into, say, a subspace more than you thought they would. That's not necessarily bad, but it can be just a good way to just keep tabs on what's going on. That by applying that physical pressure, you just really understand their body more. That do I need to bring them up more? Do I need to maybe sort of lower the intensity of the session? Are they just going to need a bit more time in between the strikes or sort of the next scene? That, without that kind of touch, it can just be very hard to tell.
Muscle groups.
Yes. Then after that, the thing I always like to go into is some point more background in sports science is understanding your partner's muscle groups. That bum is obviously a great place to feel and touch, but you know, every way you've got a muscle in your body can feel good. Some are better than others. Obviously, bum is nice, big, easy to hit, easy to touch. You know, it's the sexy part of the body. But everywhere else can be just as good. Whether that's you want to deliver pain, which is also a massive part of physicality. It doesn't have to be sensual. You can deliver a lot of pain by just hard touches, especially within pressure areas. But it can also be quite soothing. But it can be a great way when you know people's muscle groups and you know sort of what interacts with what. So it's with the bicep, tricep, opposite. If maybe I'm squeezing this quite hard, sort of their bicep applying a lot of pressure, a lot of force, maybe I'm holding the partner, applying some pressure to sort of the opposite end of the muscle group, it can just help relieve that sort of tension, that intensity, that they're now sort of getting the reverse feeling that not just one part of the body is being sort of worked up again and again and again and again. That you kind of apply pressure on the reverse side of that, so it can help sort of relax the things which you're giving a lot of attention to.
Yeah. And it can also be used massively to intensify your scene. For instance, we had one impact scene where, you know, we just had our standard flogger, and I don't know, you subs are probably used to this. You have the one flogger, you always get hit with it, you know exactly what it feels like, you know exactly how much you can take of it, you're just sitting there dazed along, like, oh yeah, this is lovely. And then James came in and applied clothes pegs to my pressure points. So pressure points up there and there on the back of my arms. And all of a sudden that felt like an entirely new flogger. It was like, are you sure that that's the same toy and the same intensity? Because the intensity of the sensation somewhere else on my body was just a simple clothes peg was so high that all of a sudden I could barely focus on what was going on. And I think that's one of the really interesting ways that you can, think about using your body and using a partner's body just by having that understanding of their physicality and themselves as an actual person, not just as a sub. Because sometimes we do get so into the mental aspect of our kink that we forget about what are interesting things you can just do to someone's body to make their scene fun.
Exactly. Just as I said, so what I personally love to often use clothes pegs, still sort of clamps within my play. There's no reason you can't do it with your hands. It can be really fun to do it with the hands. Because once again, it just adds more skin-to-skin contact. And once again, if we were going sort of hard impact on the bum, going away, that you just need to start applying pressure to other places. That it's not going to hurt, though it can do if I sort of squeeze this very hard. I'm pinching Tessa's skin, her muscle. I can sort of dig into it potentially. There's some nice soft muscle bits I can dig into. And then she's now no longer completely focused on the bum. That sensation that's going on is now your attention being drawn from two completely separate parts of your body. That I can dig in, keep going away. And now that's just going to be so much more intense. It's going to apply some more body contact. Once again, I'm going to be able to keep sort of a physical touch on her, more feeling, understand. I can tell if it's a bit more intense, if maybe need to slow it down on one side or the other. But sort of that physical touch can just really help just change the session. That, like I said, she's no longer just thinking about her bum, she's now thinking, oh god, what's going on to my neck, what's going on to my arm. Even if it's just maybe the back of the leg, that you can come all the way up and down pretty much any muscle group you have. If I can pinch a little bit, it's pretty much good to go. And you've got these thighs, the back, even down to their feet, their toes. If you can pinch it, it's game. I recommend try it. Try just next time you're with your partner, if you're a dom, just give a strange part of their body a little bit of a pinch while you're doing some impact to see what happens. It's just going to completely draw their attention away from what's going on. Like I said, it can just take you out of that familiarity. Like, you know what your bum getting hit feels like. You know what your tits getting flogged feels like. The second you start applying pressure other places, it's just going to be a bit of a confusion in your body. What are they doing to my toes? What are they doing to my bicep? I thought I was having attention given to my bum, and now my arms are feeling the pressure. They're feeling used.
Another thing I think that's important to talk about in physicality and kink and using our partner as a body as well is, I think a lot of times we talk about compression in rope and how good the compression feels in rope and how much, for a lot of people they're looking for that sensory response when they do rope around their body, when they do rope around, their legs, stuff like that. It's comforting. And so another way you can intensify your scenes with your physicality would be either in rope, adding your body to provide that same compression or that same physical touch, or in your impact scenes where you might not be using rope, using your body to provide that sort of same sensation that one would get from that interesting, compression, that feeling. And a lot of time it looks like from the outside you're probably kind of wrestling your partner onto the ground in a bit of a weird way, but the way it feels is, a lot more different. So even just, there's been times where I've been sort of laid down on the bed and, instead of just laying down there's a full knee in my back now, because, you can drag your knee up your partner, press down, and then, they get that same feeling of compression. Exactly. But while you're using your whole bodies together to provide it.
As Tessa said, rope is a great place where you can bring these practices in. That when you're doing things like rope, you're going to have a lot of closeness anyway, but you can get quite focused on the actual rope itself. It can be quite technical. You're trying to think about how do I do my ties, my knots, what's going on with the body. But if I had a rope, I could just bring it across the body. If we wanted to sort of intensify that scene, make it a bit more personal, a bit closer, there's no real reason why I can't sort of just apply some more of that my leg is now coming up against her, it's applying some pressure, I'm bringing Tessa back onto me, and I've still got that rope, and I can still just bring it across, and it just makes the entire situation just more intense. That if the rope's come across, I pressure the entire time, just moving my entire body across the whole time, just keeping constant pressure, constant just touching, just especially skin to skin contact. It's just going to make everything about this just so much more intense and so much better. Then, you know, if you have to do something a bit more technical, if I have to sort of come back here and maybe do some half hitches or something like that, it's good and can be fine to take that pressure off and, you know, give them a break. Not everything has to be constantly full on, full touching, full pressure. But it can just be good to, you know, I'm doing stuff back here. If it's like a specific technical that I've got to focus on, sort of rope top, just to make sure that's good. Tessa may, you know, not fall out of her subspace, may not sort of come fully around, but it can be good just to then apply just some more pressure, and she's just going to fall back into it. You're just kind of getting that nice wave. And the person, by just applying more physicalness, more body contact, like you're just going to kind of keep them in that nice state, keep them, you know, feeling very connected to you the entire time. Even if you're doing like a bit, if you're doing impact to change toy, you can do everything else. Maybe if you've got your toy right next to you, put your knee on their back, as Tessa said, it'd be always fun. That I sort of fiddle around my bag. Maybe I don't know what thing I want to use next. Maybe I'm not sure what I want to do next. If Tessa wasn't around, I could happily keep a knee on the back, fiddle around my bag, just, you know, see what I want to do next. She's still feeling my entire body. We're still having that nice physical contact. She's still very involved in me looking through my bag, and we're just keeping that connection going, keeping that intensity going.
Yeah. I think the other thing I would say as well is, like, don't be afraid, I guess, in kink sometimes to go back to basics with your physicality. Like I said before, you know, we get so excited and we come here and we buy all these fun toys, you know, we buy toys with beads on the end of them and whips and all these crazy things, and we're so excited to use them on our partners. But don't be afraid sometimes to start your scenes, especially with just back to basics. I mean, an over-the-knee spanking is probably going to be one of your more intense scenes for your partner anyway, because they're physically on your body, you've got your hand on them, you're using your hands to hit them with, you know, using your knees to knee people with, stuff like that. You can intensify your hand spanks or punches in so many different ways in impact, and it's all before you even, you know, reach into that toy bucket. Or even just if you're a super toy or rope focused person, bringing that back, you know, every now and then, maybe just to surprise your partner, do things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, just bringing it back to basics is always a really good thing to do. Especially when, say, you maybe have a partner who can sort of slip too far into subspace and can become a bit unresponsive. They might not be able to give you a verbal response if you're trying to see how they are, if you're trying to sort of check, you know, are they okay, are they enjoying the situations. A verbal response just may not be possible. So using that physical sort of grip, that sort of touching, that you can once again understand their body. Are they breathing hard? Are they breathing a bit too slow? Are they, is what you are currently doing to them still consensual even? Because if they're completely gone, they're not giving you any kind of response, if they're essentially passed out, you don't know. They may not be enjoying what you're doing to you. It may not be something that they're actually wanting to do anymore.
Bring it back.
Exactly. And that can just help by applying that physicalness, by bringing them out of that subspace just a little bit, just getting that response. If that's a physical response, maybe it's a moan, a groan, just like to let you know that things are okay and that you're understanding their body. You know, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to grip them and bring all the way out and, you know, shake them until they give me a response. But if you understand your partner's body, if you're really physical with each other, if you're touching, if you're understanding what they're doing, then you can sort of keep them in that very deep space, which, you know, can be incredibly enjoyable for both people. But you're now making sure they're still in a good place, they're still enjoying what's going on.
Yeah. So I think the main thing, again, physicality and kink would be just try and every now and then remember, think about your partner's body as a body, you know, and your body as a body. And what are interesting things, and how can you you know, manipulate someone's body with your body, and how can you intensify your scenes by getting out of that mental aspect sometimes and bringing it back to just what two bodies are doing to each other.
Exactly. As I said before, just having some basic understanding of things like muscle groups. You don't have to be sort of degree level like I have, though it can be fun. You can use some small science things to really hurt people. But understanding some basic muscle groups of, where it can be fun to hit. Because like I said, it doesn't have to just be thumb. You can do impact to arms, you can do it to chest, you can do it to legs. Do it pretty much, back, anywhere you kind of have some muscle group. And it's the same with things like spanking. You can slap stuff, you can hit stuff, you can hit pretty much anywhere in someone, but you need to understand their body. And that's one of the things that's really important in physicality kink as well. It's not just understanding where it's typically fine to hit or do impact or play. It's understanding your partner's body as well. It's one of the things a lot of people, when I sort of first play with it, it's quite a known thing. A lot of friends have laughed at. They see me do it all the time. Stand up. Oh, bend over actually.
Stand up, bend over. Oh, on the table.
A nice, easy way to do to both connect with someone, maybe that's your consistent partner, or maybe someone you're just picking up first time, is to help understand their body. That if I'm trying to make sure, I know where Tessa's tailbone is, I know where her legs are, I know where I can hit. That, I can.
Yeah, I was making sure I'm covered.
That it doesn't have to be, I'm feeling for the tailbone, this is where I can hit, this is a muscle, this is that. You can once again bring that physicality into that. I can come up. I'm still feeling for those bones, but I'm now just applying a lot more body pressure. It's just making it a lot more personal thing. I'm feeling for, where it's safe, where it's going to be the nice bits for her to hit. I'm just using my entire body. Not just feeling what can be important, so I know exactly where this is, especially say have a partner with particularly tailbone or particularly protruded tailbone. It can be good to pinpoint that out. By using your entire body, you're just going to get a better understanding of them as a whole. Yes. I think that's the main gist of what I have for you today. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Yeah, so we got, thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys. It seems like a simple topic, but again, there's a lot to cover. So thank you guys for listening. If you did have any things that were like specific questions, or you had specific scenes or anything you wanted to talk about or go over, or any questions, obviously we're happy to talk about that or demonstrate maybe any ways that you could think about bringing that into a specific scene. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys. Yeah, and James is very hot in here now. Yes, is there any questions or anything that anyone wanted to talk about? No? We have the time. We're not going anywhere, but
Do you have any sort of good resources for learning about muscle groups?
When it comes to pure sports science, I think which will still give you a policy benefit, it is the Encyclopedia by Arnold, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger's. It's a mix of biography, but also such a useful book. It's a very enjoyable book. It's not just a straight textbook. That will do you a massive wealth.
And then, like James was mentioning at the end, another really good way to do it is, kind of was glossing over it, but when you're sort of feeling for where to hit on your partner, there's these important things like everyone tells you when you're learning impact and stuff like, don't hit the spine, don't hit their kidneys, all this safety stuff, which is really important. But again, it's probably going to feel a lot nicer and be a much more interesting scene for your partner if you're like, oh, where are those shoulder blades? And you're giving them a nice long stroke on their back to feel their shoulder blades. They might not even notice that that's what you're doing if they're so deep in subspace. They're like, wow, my back is being rubbed. Oh, I love it. My job's being so nice to me today. But that's probably going to be a much more fun way to do something like that, to feel for a muscle rather than just like poking at them, trying to figure out where's squishy to hit. Yeah. Of course, no worries. Anyone else?
I have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, you and then you. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Obviously you know each other very well.
Yes.
Very well connected to each other, as are we. Everyone, every sub, every job is different. Obviously, we all have different responses. So I've hit subspace a few times, and he knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
As would you. But have you got any advice for newer people that in the scene of how to watch out for subspace? Because if you go too far into it, it's very hard to respond, like you said.
Yeah. I would say the main thing is pre-negotiation. I think that is definitely the main thing. If you have someone new or somebody who's maybe new to the scene, understand understanding what they have done, and then also I would say a lot of pre-agreement of what you are going to do. I think that is the most important thing. That even if they're kind of saying more, I want more, keep going, sort of having a line in the sand of we've agreed to do up to this, and then you can back out, bring them up, get a bit more on an equal level, have those negotiations again, and then sort of if you want to go to another scene, that's fine, but that's what I recommend for that. If they're dropped really deep, that can be great, but I would sort of finish the planned things you've agreed to.
Yeah, I agree.
Come out.
I think for some of the physical signs, it would be, people dropping really deep into subspace with you again and not moving as much anymore. Usually if you get someone that's quite, deep in, they could take a really intense hit and not move or groan or moan, and you're not hearing that shortness of breath or anything anymore. Sort of, if you could look at them, they're maybe a bit more glazed, things like that, and those would be sort of the basic signs I would look out for. And if it was someone that was new, I think that's probably your time to start maybe wrapping up your scene, finishing that last thing, and then talk about it afterwards and see maybe next time do we want to go that deep or keep going even when we are that deep because it's okay, stuff like that. But there are those physical signs to look out for. The breath is like more shallow, less, consistent, eyes closing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I go, so I basically I breathe really, really slow. Almost like I'm not there.
Yeah, that's definitely an example of some things that I've seen people do, because normally especially if you're whacking them, you have to be whacking them. You pull on a rope or you give them a whack, you might get a or something like that, but you get nothing back. That's sort of one of those good signs I always notice in a sub. If they're stopped responding to things like that with their body, they just sort of sit there like a lump.
And like you said,
I didn't realise that was a real thing until...
oh yeah.
Yeah, of course, until you're there, and then you're like, wow, what happened to me?
And like you said, if you your typical response is you're breathing slow, you become just a bit more, I guess, docile. It can be the opposite, that if you're noticing the person that you're playing with is actually suddenly now, even though they're still in that sort of very deep space, not really responding, if they're breathing, it's getting quicker, if, say, they're flushing faster, they're just sort of being a bit more responsive than you thought, that could be a good physical sign, especially if you are then applying body pressure, you're looking into them, sort of feeling their body. If you feel them potentially getting more restless, so they're not saying anything, that could be a good
Yeah, that could
physical
definitely
sign.
be a good sign that they might be done or nearing their edge of their limits.
Yeah. So I think just the main thing is, sort of pre-negotiate and then sort of come to that natural end of play, and you can always just do another scene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your question?
Yeah, just a lot of, I love like the deep pressure you're going with, great. But my partner's quite a lot bigger than me.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you're trying to dominate like a man who's like
Yes.
my shoulders are here, his are like
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think have you got any advice sort of trying to, and as well, sort of maybe like on the bigger side, trying to get
Yeah,
deep
definitely.
pressure is kind of difficult.
Definitely.
I would say, don't be scared to use your entire body, just in terms of if they're on the floor, climb on top of them. That if they're a large person,
Seriously, it's awesome.
Yeah.
You don't think about it, but like I've done it. I've seen other smaller doms do it, and it's great. You always don't think about how cool it can be until they're in the scene. Like if you had your partner, say, who's maybe on the ground waiting to be collared or something like that, rather than trying to like get all the way around their whole body to do the deep pressure, maybe just use your elbows on the top of their traps up here, or just straight up take your whole leg and put it over their whole body and squish them right down in the middle, and you can do things like that because they're your partner, and you can really I would just recommend not being afraid to try weird things that feel awkward to do the first time, like putting your whole knee over your partner in a weird area, stuff like that.
My personal recommendation when it comes to bringing your body into kink is go until they say stop. Now, while that's usually not the case when it comes to maybe using a toy or how intense you can go, you only weigh so much. There's only so much damage you can do if you accidentally fall on them. Mistakes happen. You can fall on someone, it can be a bit like, oh god, that's a bit much. That's fine. It doesn't have to be super serious, like, I'm a serious dom all the time, this is a scene, and this is what we're going to do. mistakes happen if you find out, oh, is it going to be fun if I put my knee on them, if I put too much weight on them? Worst thing that's going to happen is going to be like, oh, that's a bit too much, can you take your weight off me? So that's what I'd say is just don't be scared to climb on top of your partners. Literally, stand on them, knees on them, your entire body, even if that's jumping up and down on someone. If they don't say stop, it can just be fun to just bring that entire body in and just mount your partner.
Yeah, I would just say don't be afraid. I've definitely dumped bigger people than me before, and I would say don't be afraid to start bringing in those knees, those whole arms, climb on top of them. It might seem weird if you're thinking about it the first way, but yeah, stuff like going over the top of them and squishing them in between your knees. I've definitely, like, if you're sitting, if you have, like, or standing on top of someone and, like, straddling them like that, and their chest is there, like, bringing your knees right down into their pecs. Again, it's going to bring that pressure in, and you're not going to hurt him if you're so much smaller than him anyway, you know. But you can definitely use that pivot point to, like, bring your knees down into someone and just try and use the whole force of your whole body if you're so much smaller than him.
If you see it done in MMA,
go for it. Yeah. It's a great way to find new fun things to do.
Like someone who has done jiu-jitsu, you can choke people out as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah.
So do you know about like any resources to like learn more about it? So like safety ties and lots of things, how to keep something safe while doing that?
When it comes to rope specifically, I can't recommend anything else other than Shibari Study. They are one of the best online resources. I'm very lucky myself to have an incredibly good sort of teacher. But in between the times I've managed to spend with her to sort of show her stuff, that has been an amazing resource. That can be a little bit expensive, but they have a massive amount of free courses to begin with, and sort of once you get past that beginner sort of stage, you'll know, hey, is this actually really for me? And it does actually, they do a lot of really great lessons on how to bring that physicality in, how to not just do the straight skills, how to
There is also
make it a lot more.
that's absolutely what I recommend for learning by yourself. There is also Anatomy Studio in London, which is really great. And they do have a beginner's day, I think, twice a week. Every week.
The person who ran the Shibari Study channel teach the class I did.
Yeah. So, yeah, would definitely recommend that. Yeah. Okay.
Anything else?
Alright, well thank you guys so much for joining. If you had any questions you
please
want to
feel free
come
to
up and
come up to
ask
me
us
anytime.
personally, please feel free to do so. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Also, I have delivered a panel to over 700 vanilla people at a large UK festival. This was more intimidating than all my peers.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
How do I... Oh, thank you. I'm just trying to cover it so I don't get everyone in it. That's a smart idea. Sorry.